Well, welcome back to the ITAM Kitchen, the place where we get around the kitchen counter and we have that discussion. Sometimes you never know what the discussion is going to be. You just have that chat, and all of a sudden we spark that idea, and it just all of a sudden goes. And today we're going to talk about business cases, of all things. Okay, what can I say? Okay, as we get a different screen, there we go. Welcome back to Deanna and Rob to be able to assist on this, because when we think about business cases, right, it's being able to look at that bigger picture. But a few logistics before we get started. I'm trying to get better on this. I'm learning like everyone else. My name is Bill, Mr. Bill. I'm a recovering IT practitioner, hardware asset management, software asset management, configuration management. Figure out where it is, we'll make it happen, and have fun and keep an open mind. That's what it's all about. And now I'm able to folks all around the globe, and I love it. Now we're doing the ITAM Kitchen. I have a few guests, and they're the regular guests, which is great because I love having regular folks here, right? We have Deanna. Deanna, want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. Hi, I'm Deanna Hennigar, and I have been working in industry for about 30, 40 years. Started with broadcasting, moved into training, and moved into large companies, and have worked the gambit of asset management as well as service management.
That's cool. And then we have Rob Collins as well. Just my brain's all over the place. Trust me, there's been crazy stuff happening, but that's what keeps me on my toes. And Rob, do you want to introduce yourself real quick, and we'll dig right into this?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Absolutely. I'm Rob Collins. I'm an IT asset management practitioner for 30 plus years, starting in the military with the United States Marines, and then into government service, PubSec, with two agencies within the state of Florida government system, and then for a few years, IT asset management consulting beyond that for like 5 years. And here we are today.
Yep.
Back to you, Bill.
Absolutely. Because when we talk about here today, right, it's being able to say, where are we, right? Because we continue to evolve. And I'll give a little tip. If you've been doing exactly the same thing for 7 years, it's time to grow. It's trying to thrive. It's trying to find, if you're having fun so far, it's starting to get a little mundane. It needs to be mundane for you. You're doing the same thing for 7 years. It's time to spice it up because there's a lot to do. For 30 years, I have to say I've yet to have a customer identical to another one, and that's identical. That's identical. That's fun. I don't know why. Identical was just stuck in my head, but that's where the fun is. You make it fun, thriving, make that next step. Because when you start helping the entire organization, and I'll say literally that light bulb goes on for the individual, that's what does it for me, right? And that's what I'm hoping we're doing for you a little bit on the ITAM Kitchen as we do this. Because we started January 7th as an entire pilot. And I said, okay, do the rest of the month. Now we're going all the way through February. And trust me, March, we're going to spice it up even more. We're going to have more fun with it and have more scenarios that we're going to talk through. And we'll do that a little surprise, not quite there yet, but we'll get that announcement in the next day or two before we end this week. And we'll show you and tell you guys what's forthcoming, because it's a little secret, and I don't like keeping secrets. But in this case, I want to fine tune it before we talk about where we're going, because when we go, your mind's going to explode in a good way, in new ways. Exactly. So today, before we get started, if you put where you're from as you're connected, because everyone's talking. We've seen people all the way from South Africa. I think we had somebody from South Africa. Say where you're from, right? Say and talk about and put the biggest struggle you have with business cases. It might be say, okay, how do I do it? Right? It could be that simple. I totally get it. Right? It might be say, how do you get executive buy-in? And we'll talk through that. Because keep in mind, we do this for 1 hour. Sometimes our topics go more than just 1 hour. We have to have a second session for it, and that's great too. That means the collaboration dialogue is there. Because when it comes to business cases, everybody says, well, go write a business case. I mean, I learned all the time, and being a consultant, it's like, business case was done. I was doing the implementation. The purchase was already made, right? And being able to say, okay, I never was part of that executive decision, right? right? And when I learned how to write business cases, I had the pleasure that when I left HP, I actually went to Flexera and wrote business cases for hundreds of customers, actually, for a couple of years. And reported 50 sales guys and lots of other customers, and you do your assessment, understand, throw the proposal in there, and make it happen. It's like, okay, your head's spinning. Sometimes I was in 3 to 4 cities a week doing this, right? So sometimes you can't keep your story straight. I'll be honest, it's insane, right? But what I learned out of it was how to better optimize my time, how to make sure I had the conversation what I captured along the way. So you have that aspect, but what you also learn when you go down this path, with business cases, you learn more about the customer. And that's what I want to start driving into. Let's outline what a business case looks like. We're not going to go through the whole detail because we do not have time for everything. We need to put in a business case because there's lots of different ways and needs, et cetera. And we can work through that. Those can be follow-up sessions. That's great. But today we're going to talk about the outline. And this is part of the ITAM Treasure series. And the reason why I put an ITAM Treasure series is because it comes to the solution consultant, which is the real role we've been talking about the entire month. One of the roles, one of the things you should expect from this individual is to help you write a business case, help you compose it, get the whole key facts down from that. It's like, well, let's just jump right into it. We've mentioned it. We've talked about this for weeks, actually. We've teased with it. It's like, let's jump all in because we're not shy. We go on the deep end. There's no diving board, by the way. We just jumped right off that cliff, and here we are. We've got how to swim, right? And that's the whole idea behind this. As we're cooking, trust me, we got utensils. You got Daffy trying to help. Here we go. Daffy's trying to help, etc. And because sometimes we never know what we're going to do. So let's start the question with this. And I'm going to take notes as I always do. We're going to go live, and we're taking notes as we go. What is Deanna? I'll start with you. And Deanna, play whatever role you want on the business case. If you want to throw it back and forth, all three of us. So Rob, you do the same thing. Throw it around and say, we haven't done that. We need to figure out what that is. Hey, let's be honest with everybody, right?
Yeah.
But the first thing that comes to mind for the question is, where do we start? Because we know where we're going to end, but we know the end, and maybe we want to start the end, but where do we start in the whole business case process? What comes to mind?
One of the first things that I think of is I want to make SMART goals for my business case. I want to make sure that what I'm talking about is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And then from there, as I keep that in my background, that's when I move into the problems and the objectives.
Yep.
Am I doing exactly what they need me to do? Then I like to identify and appraise options, because this way, when I'm using my SMART goals, I'm making sure that I'm staying within, hopefully, the company I am with. And not thinking about, we have to think about the other companies, but this way we make it specific also to the company we are presenting to. Remember, they don't have time.
No,
SMART
that's what was it? SMART goals, and what was after SMART goals?
The specific goals, so that we clarify what exactly we want to achieve in the business case.
Right. And what was right after SMART goals?
That's then I said define the problem and the objectives. What do we need to do? Yeah.
Got it.
So these are good topics to discuss going forward.
Oh yeah, that's perfect. Nope, absolutely. And then you said identify options, so it's great. Okay, part of that outline, put it out there.
Yeah.
And how are we going to engage our stakeholders so that they are interested in what we're talking about? Knowing how to talk to management.
Got it.
And what we talk to them about, we want to make sure that we have the evidence-based justification. This way we know we are talking about what they want to hear. And not just we want to tell them. A lot of people forget to want to make sure what they want to hear, and we get lost in what we want to tell them.
Keep going. That's perfect.
What's the risk management involved, and how are we going to express the risk
Yep.
in a way that they will take us serious. And then lastly, sure you review and update regularly. There are a lot of times where we're about to go in a meeting and somebody made another decision, and we need to keep on top of those decisions before we do our business case.
I say keep fresh.
Keep fresh.
No, that's it's kind of like you wrote that out of a book. It's awesome. So it's perfect,
Yeah.
which is great. Rob, what's some of your comments on what we have listed so far? What do we need to add, change, rearrange? What comes to mind?
No, those are all pretty much it. Of course, you've got the executive summary. It kind of ends up after all this other work is done, right? But then the other things too to consider are what options that you have available to you to resolve the problem that's been stated, right? And I'm sure there'll be more than one. So you want to put that in place so that the stakeholders have a chance to read this over and kind of get an understanding of what those options are, and then some financial analysis around the return on investment, what it's going to take to engage in any of those options that are present. And this is going to help them to make those decisions. And when I say them, I mean your audience, the executive that's going to be receiving this business case. So those things are really important, I believe. Let me see, yeah. And then kind of a high-level implementation plan, if you will, among those options, which should be part of that analysis anyway. And, you know, the executive statement, for instance, or summary is going to be the closest thing you're going to have to like your elevator pitch, you know, to engage the room or the person and say, now, if you want to know more, here's another sort of like level of detail that we can give you around that, which is the business case itself. And then finally, the only other thing I can think of is, you know, make an argument or illustrate the strategic alignment between how what you're proposing against the stated problem lines up with the overall goals of the business. If those things don't align to, let's say, or elaborate on the specific goals of the business, then why are you doing it in the first place? It seems like a journey down a rabbit hole or something other than attention to fixing business and or this particular solution.
Absolutely. So from, you know, I love it because we have that. You're right. The fundamental outlines here. I'll give everyone a hint. That's the easy part.
Yeah.
That's the easy part right there. Right.
Yeah.
From here is where it starts getting busy. It actually you start earning your wage. And the solution consultant, try to get I've got a glare in here. Let me light. That's where you start rolling up your sleeves and say, what in the world did I get into? As an example. So let's dig into this a little bit more, right? Because to everyone's point, we have goals. We know what the goals are, and everyone's kind of you wouldn't even be in the picture, right? Or even having the topic of mind if people didn't know what the problem statement as well as the goals, what you want that to come. Maybe it's saving money, maybe it's optimizing, maybe you want to understand your software portfolio, maybe you want to understand your hardware portfolio, maybe you want to bring in data centers or OT devices in addition to your desktop assets. They're all sorts of different scenarios, right? And that's where some of your options will come in as well. But when you have these two defined, that gets us started, because what you have to look at here, what comes to mind here is when you have a SMART goals and problem statement, that's where your validation starts.
Yep.
Right? You validated that because there's a whole awareness part. So let's start digging into that a little bit more too, because there's a whole set of, I'll say, process and activities here to make sure we have those captured. And let's just dig right into that, right? Because from an awareness standpoint, I've got to learn how to do this better without putting my back to the camera. You have this, but that awareness is with your stakeholders and sponsor. And I'll put sponsors, because sometimes you don't realize there's additional sponsors that are coming in the project still to help you, right? When you look at that. And we start doing that, you start refining it. Okay, everyone's going to say, yes, 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 I have a problem, right? But that's also where they say, oh, what are you thinking? What's going through your mind? What's those draft ideas, right? Yeah. And be able to say, okay, let's brainstorm. It's more of the introduction. That's actually a good point. I'll put in here. Over communication is not a bad thing, right? You go, right?
At this phase, over communication is not a problem. You're just grabbing all your resources, putting them in a room, doing a brainstorming session. This is what's going on. This is what's happening. What's everybody think? We know of other problems that are related to this. This is one of those we can kill two birds with one stone sorts of things. And draw from your team and get them excited and interactive in this conversation.
Exactly, because it may also be the part that you actually have. If you have a lot of stakeholders, more likely it's going to be a Teams call or Zoom or something like that, right? It's going to be more that kickoff, which is not unusual even for a meeting. It's in person. You have that kickoff saying, "Here's where it's going. Here's what I'm working on." It's like, and more updates are forthcoming. And don't shut on that one, right? Because when that more updates, maybe when you do that validation into what Rob was just talking about, you have to do that team by team. That may have to occur as you put that in place. That's not a bad thing, right? Everyone's going to have their own objectives and how they move forward, but that's also key because every environment's going to be a little different. I mean, for all the business cases I put together, and I put together hundreds, probably thousands, which I hadn't thought about because it adds up quickly. Everyone's a little different, right? Because when you think about over communication sponsors, say you have their sponsor, right? I give a key. What's one of the first things you should ask? For me, the first thing to ask from a sponsor perspective is what format do you want this in?
Yeah.
That is usually 99% of the time that's overlooked.
Yeah, you don't want death by PowerPoint.
Well, it's that's one. What's the other reason why you do that? Rob, what comes to mind? What's the other reason why you ask that?
Oh, so that they can, whatever they're going to use for analysis, they can take that in and run that right away. You don't have to trouble them with trying to reinterpret or reformat your message.
That's part of it. Going a little bit deeper. Don't overthink it. It's easy to overthink this one.
It is.
They have less time.
We've got less time, but the stakeholder sponsor, they already know what they want. They know how they want to see it. They want to see that, right? So they're saying, do you have any examples for me to start from?
Okay.
It's literally that simple.
How do you guys usually take these sorts of, how do you guys usually digest your business cases?
Exactly. Because when you ask them, it's like, what's your format? Some may be numbers, some may be verbal, some may be pictures. So you look at charts the entire time. Everyone's a little different. And I say that as being, I've done hundreds of these and had to redo hundreds at the same time, some lessons learned. When you start saying, you actually also acknowledge that they've done this before. They've been through this, right? And when you do that, you actually gain credibility by just asking that question. And all of a sudden they go, oh, wow, we're talking to somebody who's done this before. He or she's asking me, okay, how do I want to see it so I can digest it? It's the format I see it. I have 15 minutes to look at before that next meeting. I know how to digest it. I know what to look for. Here's what I'm going to look for, X, Y, and Z. And you're able to go that next step. But I also give a hint. The business case for one executive may not be the format for another executive.
Okay.
And that's also a key point I want to bring home for everybody, because as a solution consultant, we have to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Because we're actually there. There's some other choice words I want to think of that I won't put on there. We're the administrator to this. We're facilitating the conversation. We have to make sure we put things in their format, not ours. We're going to help even our messaging has to be in their format. But we talk about that format and ask for the template. or ask for an example. Typically, here's what happens when you ask and say, what do you want like to put in? They're going to say, I just did this business case last month, or a really big initiative. Let me forward it to you. You can leverage that. And I need you to put your stuff into it, but here's a start. That's a whole run in my book, right? And I said, it's not saying it's done. It's not one and done, but you're in a step in the right direction. You know what they're thinking, right? And that's key on the business case. Again, 99% of the time, this question's overlooked. And when I learned it, it was an earth change. It changed everything, right? The whole situation, right? Yeah, because when you start doing that, maybe I say old business case, it could be a template. I'll put I'm so glad I found the eraser on this. That's awesome. For that business case template, it just makes it easier because maybe they've been trying to do this for years, had failed implementations. Well, ask for some of those facts, right? That's back to the story, the problem. Okay, what's happening? Maybe it's a resource problem. Maybe it's a money problem. All of a sudden it became available. And you never know. But when you start thinking about that, how you put that forward is extremely key, right? Because now you know where to start. You're validating, you have the sponsors communicating, you know your problem statement. That's cool, right? Because, again, there was one really large deal I did one time on a business case. It was multi-million dollars, right? It took me 3 months to get that business case right.
Okay.
Working with the right-hand person from the CIO. And the reason why it took so long was I had to learn how to use charts differently inside of PowerPoint as well as Excel to get those to chart outcome. You want to talk about learning experience? It was insane. Because literally it took me 3 months, and that's as I'm doing other business cases too. So this is my primary one, but everything is important, right? But you learn about how to do things because you say, oh, it's in PowerPoint. Yeah, but when you start realizing all the features and functionalities in PowerPoint, and the executives like to see a certain format, and they all do, all have a format, right? All of a sudden, you want to see how those charts be put in place. And you have Six Sigma involved, and some of the gaps and the deltas and the ratios. It was insane. It's like, it sounds really good conceptually, but trying to make that happen with technology is not always easy. Okay, so you're looking for the template here. Did you any more you guys want to add to that?
I did actually, and I think that the thing that I was thinking about as you were going through this is really if there's a question of how you start, right? The simplest and the easiest way to start just about anything is sit down and write it out conceptually within your head. If it's nothing more than a series of notes, if it's nothing more than a series of hand drawings on napkins and get those images together, the whole point is so that you can get started on communicating this message to people that can make it happen, right? It's just simply record it. And then from there, you can build off of it and consider the tools that you have at hand now, right? And make an attempt to do how would you say, like a demo or a SketchUp of that using your existing tools to frame the idea and all of those points. Once you've got that put together for yourself, and let's say a couple of folks you bring in to review that first look, then move forward to the tools and consider how they're going to pull this in, what they formats they're used to, etc. So as a starting point, always, always, always. And my father taught me this when I was little. You can draw it, you can build it. If you can write it, you can make it. So here's a really good place to start that activity. Yep.
And now that you have this and some of the facts, you can start going towards creating that draft, like what Rob was talking, right? And you'll be able to say, okay, because at this point, your mind is, unless you're prepared to do, unless you've done business cases and you've been around the block a little bit, You're going to say, what in the world did I get into?
Mhm.
That's okay. That means you're on the right path. I'll be honest. That means you're on the right path, right? And when you start doing that draft, expect some critical feedback on that.
Mhm.
Right? A lot of critical feedback, and they're not going to hold back. These are executives. They need something so they can make, and maybe the executive's not even involved. They're going to say, Bill, I need to go talk with Joe. He helps me all the time.
Yeah.
He's like my right-hand person. He helps me, helps everyone help create business cases so I can see it. 1 hour meeting, we're done. It's the end of story, right? And maybe that's what happens. Don't be surprised at all. That happens all the time. Deanna, did you want to add any more to what the commentary? Because we just went through a lot right here. Just a lot. Yeah.
Well, whatever you also want to make sure that it's focused on what they want and not some of the things you want. That's why I'm going back to when you're asking your sponsors, what does he usually look for?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Let's go to this case template. What
I'd like to add to that.
what they look for to what they need.
Right.
What they need. Okay.
And they like more bottom line right away instead of all the facts and figures. Tell me, that's where your executive summary comes
Yes.
in. All right, so you don't want to say, I went through this, and here's my bottom line. No, tell me your bottom line. If I need to know, I'll ask you, how did you derive your decision?
That's a good point, and you're going to learn that. So thank you for bringing that up. That's a great point. You got the business case template, what you need. It's also going to provide you how they want it explained to provide it to them.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the draft business case. And let me inject a little bit more in here, right? Mm-hmm. So when you think about it, and Deanna, what I want you to do is explain what you just said, and let's get one captured on right one more time, because I think that's a critical part in this whole discussion is what's in that? How does the executive think, right?
Executive has all his individuals working on all the problems. We are summarizing to give them the details of what they want to learn. That's why I wanted to start with the SMART, because we are taking the bottom line, and if they have questions, they may already know all the individual players and that you've gotten their discussion points. So if you give him the bottom line, he knows, okay, I can go to Bill for this, and I can go to Rob for that, and I can go over here for that. If I need them, I need to know where to start my financial problem or what is my actual situation. So giving them the bottom line first lets them know how you've ended up with your answer. And if he needs to know, well, why did you get this answer? Then you can go into the nitty gritties. He may not have the time for the nitty gritties during the meeting.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the other thing that comes to mind is this has to do with kind of the format a little bit, right? So you have individuals and their executive. They all, some are numbers driven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some are facts. Results.
Results, yeah. And risks.
Right. Risks. Some are detailed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why giving them a detailed executive summary before the meeting gives them the ability to look at the actual talking points.
Yeah, a lesson learned I had, because after doing all these type of proposals that I was talking about with the business cases, I did one for educational group. and I quickly learned, okay, it's like, here I am, I learned how to do business cases, I had the reports, here's what looks good, I make it look snazzy, here's the gaps, etc. And I gave it to the assistant controller, financial controller. She says, Bill, this is great, but I can't use it. And keep in mind, I spent like a week on it, right? I go, well, what do you mean? It's like, we like detail. We fill the whole slide up with words. We don't worry about charts. We want words. Again, that's back to detail. What are they looking for? What they seek? That comes from the template. And when you look at that, that's also helps that explanation. Because to Deanna's point, maybe they're reviewing it. That's that 15-minute conversation, but they want to read it. And educators typically do, right? They love to write books. It's the best way to put a proposal. The death by PowerPoint, we talk about putting a lot of words into it. They don't pay attention to the formatting that we talk about presenting. No, it's not 3 words per line and three bullets per page. No. It's about 100 words if you can do it, and they'll put in some very small print if they want. That's just how that works. But I bring that up because when you come to the format, you have that output that's extremely critical, and you may get blindsided by it because all of a sudden you put something in what you believe is right. Again, it's back to that critical feedback. Mm-hmm. Okay, what is that next step, right? So as we look at that, okay, we're creating that draft business case. So perfect. I think that's great. Is there anything else I need to capture in here that I don't have captured? Please keep me honest, guys. I think I've got the key points in there.
I don't think so around that. But there were 2 things that did come to mind. You're right.
And you will get barked at from time to time too. So
to that.
There you go.
For details.
Yeah. So there were 2 things that came to mind, right? The first one that came to mind is that the sender of the message is the one responsible for communicating the message, right? If it's you're writing a business case, keep that in mind. Their understanding is dependent on how you articulate the message. But then the second part, kind of adding to what Bill was saying a little bit ago, there is this inspirational quote by women that do things in the world, right? And for the life of me, all I can do is paraphrase. And I sure wish that I could get some help in finding the specific quote and who said it. And the way the quote goes, at least I'll paraphrase, is, for God's sakes, man, if you have something important to say, start at the end. That's for your bottom lining. So if anybody can help me out with exactly where that quote comes from and who, I would appreciate it.
Well, you're right. You just want to say it. And also is being able to say, as you look through, as you write your message, right? There's also the Mark Twain quote.
I got it.
Oh, go for it.
Okay. It's Matt Waller's, WALLAERTS. Start at the end.
Okay.
I like it.
How to build products that create change.
Okay.
Yep. Absolutely. And what you also want to do, as far as going to Mark Twain, it complements that, right? His quote is, if I had more time, I'd create a shorter message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or short, I think a short letter, actually. And that tells volumes, right? Because how can you concisely get your point across? And that's kind of what you're hitting. That's the whole reason behind a business case, right? But keep in mind, how they communicate is different depending upon the type of personality and what they think about, where they came from. Maybe it came from the financial world, maybe it came from the technology world, maybe they're looking at data. I've seen a little of everything, right? I think I've told the story on a different episode where I literally heard a CIO or CEO said that he's interested, that he's focusing on asset management for this energy company. That totally blew me away. That totally makes sense for infrastructure, right? We've talked about IT asset management. So yeah, I'm totally looking at IT asset management. I want to know where my assets are so I can deal with any type of risk, et cetera. Okay, so we're creating the draft business case. We're here. And where do we go from there? We're creating the draft. What's our next step if we're going to continue building this out? What's that next step? What comes to mind?
This is where we start adding the meat and potatoes with the data that they're actually looking for us to report upon.
Okay, let's outline some of that. So you've got the data. Okay.
It's like elaborating on the question. Like, what is it that you need to go hunt down in order to deliver this, to construct?
Rob, you're a little low right now.
Okay. Okay. No, I'm thinking this is also the place where you kind of start asking the question, where do you look in order to support your case? What sort of financial information is available to you, the numbers of tickets, the cost of the trouble or the problem, So you start to kind of dig into this as well, and then you look at the truth of those systems that are developing, or that you're going to extract that data out of. And I know that this could lead to more questions and more problems, but for the sake of yours, for this one, this is where you have to begin fanning out and having people go get that stuff and bring it back, and then sitting down and analyzing, which will be a little further down the line.
Yeah. And that process is data becomes information and information becomes knowledge.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, because when you start researching some of these, I just put data, cost, resources. I said not resources, but readiness. And that readiness can be across the board. It can be technology, it could be resource, process. When you start thinking about that, that's where you start, rubber meets the road, right? You start saying, okay, how do I start crafting it? And you have to be, you're putting an orchestra together, right? You're orchestrating this whole thing. So now you're the conductor. You have to make all this fit. And this is also where we've had AI for the last couple of days on the topic. AI can help you with this, actually, right? Yeah. And being able to help say, okay, I have this, how do I put it together? That's a perfect use for AI to help complement your job. And also you get some additional experience too. Now, make sure that you validate anything comes out, but that's just from a craft your message perspective, it's a great opportunity for you. But think about that. But you're absolutely right. Being able to data, the cost, readiness, and maybe in this case also, because you also know your requirements, that's kind of the problem statement, right? And because, for example, if you're trying to get a solution, we'll figure out, okay, how am I going to solve software asset management inside of an enterprise? That may include buying a product or solution and services, right? On top of it, implementation services. You have this plus you're now comparing products with different options, right? And you're going to have to get their input and insights and say a little bit of comparisons, comparative analysis as well. So, okay, how am I working with those numbers? Just add complexity to it, right? What the heck? We don't have enough complex things happening in our world. Let's just add some more, right?
Requirements and resources?
I'll have resources.
Because do you have enough people to do what the ask is?
It's not just the resources. Do you have enough people, but do you have the right people in place to do that from a readiness perspective, right? In the tool. So absolutely.
The idea of the resources, is this to determine a solution, or is this going to be written into one of your optional solutions, or is this resources in order to develop the problem statement and the business case?
It depends if you're doing government work or commercial work. Okay. I say that there's a big smile on my face, because if you're going down the government part, the government sector that Rob's extremely familiar with, this takes forever because of what Rob was just talking about. You have to have one individual work with the requirements. Here's what the problem statement, finish that project. 3 months later, you get to the next step. It's some people call it painful. Some people call it that's how the government works, right? It's democratic, which is fine. Everybody has their own, and I'm not trying to ding one way or another. It's not that. But it's very important to understand that as well from a timeline perspective, because sometimes that is the entire bigger. If you're used to commercial type of implementations, right, and you end up doing a government, it's going to drive you nuts. I'll be brutally honest, right? Be prepared, be extremely patient when I say that. Yeah. Extremely patient, because time to them doesn't matter. They might say it does, but it really doesn't. They need for the steps to be followed. And that's Rob, correct me on that, but that's usually what I've seen from my side when it comes to government.
Yeah, it's
the government.
Yeah, I'd agree. It really is. They want to make, there are certain, there are certain qualities to the case and the solutions where it's more important to be accurate. It's more important to get that financial analysis than it is to be fast. It falls along the lines of the triple constraint, where time isn't as important as quality and cost, especially cost.
That's a great point. But when you start crafting this, you put it within your draft, right? The entire time, you're still updating your stakeholders.
Yeah.
There's something else that I thought of with what Robert said. I'm going to put it under scope, but it actually sometimes too many cooks spoil the sauce. What if you have conflicting stakeholders? Even though
Which never happens.
yeah, I realize that. So,
Yeah.
and it's also not the one who's yelling the loudest. That's when you have to now take the meeting, put it aside. And what reminded me about this, I read a lot of technical documents where I can tell somebody else picked up later on. One of the buzzwords I had from education is that data are. Data never is, that's datum. One data is datum. Anything, so that's why data is always are. And so I was reading this manual once. Yay, they did it right. Whoops, someone corrected it.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean about too many cooks spoil the sauce.
Yeah.
Or broth.
It's also when you start doing things by committee. That's
Yep.
another way of saying that, right?
Yeah.
You start doing things by committee, and government gets stuck in this. There's nothing new. It's rubbing elbows. That's the best way to explain it, right? It is what it is.
Yeah.
But when you start putting that, to your point, you just realize it's going to be tedious, and you need to figure out who's really driving this bus. Because it's important to have that in as well. Because back to Deanna's problem or point, if it becomes political, find someone to help you. Don't try to do it by yourself. Unless you're really equipped to do that, do not do it by yourself.
No.
Make sure you have, that's what your stakeholder and your sponsors are for. Have them pay that and have that conversation. And realize you may not be in the room when they have that conversation. But yeah, those type of discussions, that's not for us to try to solve. Unless you're really equipped and you can do it, which I won't even step up for that one. I want someone else to help because it typically cannot be me because I'm trying to find a solution. I don't need more problems to be brought onto them in general. Okay, so as we're moving forward, oh my gosh, we're doing great here. Any suggestions from online? We're talking with the three of us, which is great, but is there anyone online? Patrick, I see you're out there. That's great. Appreciate you being here. Is there anyone else that wants to provide additional insight on this? Because are we done? By no means. We're just gotten the draft, right? And we have the draft. We have some of the requirements. We're updating our stakeholders. And we're updating the stakeholders. We're telling them where we are on all this. And they're going to say, and they're going to want to see some, they want to see some work. They want to see some results. You say, well, I'm not ready yet. Be prepared to show things in draft form. That's the best way to explain it. And you're going to say, well, I'm not ready. I get it. We all want to be ready. By showing a draft form, they want to make sure you're at least on the right path.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for that, right? Because if all of a sudden you've been working on this business case for a month on your own with no additional outside help, and in that month you find out it's nowhere near where it needs to be, where have you been the last 30 days? Right? Especially if you're a contractor resource, something like that, they're going to say, what just happened here, right? I paid for all these hours. At that point, say 160 hours of effort that is not usable. You don't want to get caught in that scenario. I'm just using an example. Maybe you're a full-time employee, you don't have that problem. Maybe it's a whole different problem, but it's looking something, it's a ding against you because you just haven't communicated.
Yeah. Doing those weekly check-ins, for instance, is a really good way to kind of mitigate that.
And when you do that, back to what Deanna was talking about, sometimes what you find out is you have multiple people that want to be a sponsor to this. And they have to partner with each other and they don't like each other. That's not your problem. It is your problem, but you have to let them work it out. That's not for you to step in the middle of. It's for you to identify. It's just like, guys, gals, I don't know what to say because this is this is an issue between the two of you. I need one person to report to or figure out, and maybe you want to work together. That's great. I'm more than help to work with you. But I need to know how to work with both of you if that's the case, because right now I've only been working with one person. And I have two people want to control the project. That's a program, right? That's a problem.
You can get them back in alignment by asking them, well, how does this help us win? What is the strategic hook you are telling me that's not the same as what everybody else is telling me? Get them back on the same page. Then again, you're going to stay out of it, but at least you want to see if you can get them back on the same page.
Yeah. There are different strategies for that. It depends on what your place is, what your role, and what level of authority, for instance, that you're discussing with. I've had 10,000 stories about sorts of this kind of activity, and sometimes it's, I need everybody in consensus in the room. You get 3 minutes right now to grieve over what's led us to this point so we can move on. Or you call them together and say, I need your heads in the game. So whatever this is that's happening, I put it aside, settle it at the gym, whatever you got to do. But right now, this is what I need. This is what we need.
Exactly. And we're giving lots of different options here. I'm not writing all those down, but those are great suggestions for you to keep in mind as options and dialogue to have as you're working through it. And are you going to have a perfect? No. Imperfection is actually key in this one. You don't want it to be perfect. You want it to be imperfect because everyone's a critic. Everyone will always be a critic on a business case. Always. If you're expected for kudos on it, you may get some of what's all said and done, great job, etc. But along the process, you'll get some welts, is the best way to put it. You're going to get beaten up pretty good along the way. And realize you need some thick skin when you do this. And I'm not trying to scare you to say not to do it. In business case, you absolutely should. Because once you do this, you're going to say, oh, wow, that wasn't bad. It's not, right? We're just giving some examples, right? Okay, so at this point, create a business case. We're updating stakeholders. We're validating progress on what we're doing. Maybe it's a draft business case as well. We're getting it refined. Maybe there's different charts. And maybe it's also, actually, it's a good point. You're validating progress, but you're also asking for help.
Yeah, help and input.
What's
together, the help and input, because together you're building the case.
Correct. And this is where the team building happens with the whole business case process. No longer, so you're orchestrating. Okay, you've been part of those meetings, right? You're trying to drive the meeting, and everyone has their feedback and input because they're not in your shoes. That's what we're talking about, right? Ask for help. It's that opportunity to say, you know what? Maybe this chart isn't working out, and this is where this happened. I don't know how to do that chart. Or say, oh, well, go talk to Tom. Tom just did it last week for me, or did it last month. He did that chart. He has an example for you to start from. Great, awesome. Yeah. You don't have to learn from scratch.
Yeah,
that's kind of the point, right? That's the whole purpose behind that, right?
That'll save you so much time and pain and effort too. I'm no good at Word. Do we have any Word experts? Great. Let me use them. Give me 5 hours. Give me 2 hours. Do we have a chart expert? Great. Let's get him in. Give me 6 hours with that person. So you start aligning resources to get this other stuff pulled together. Stuff that's hard for you to do, it's going to take too long. Please delegate those things.
Absolutely. And we've kind of given the good insight here. We've got pretty in depth. We've not gone through it all entirely. But the reason I want to come back to our goals, right?
Yeah.
At this point, we've done our SMART goals, identify the problem statement. We're validating that. We also have the stats coming in, right? We're identifying our options. Identify your options. That's going to be, and those charts can be part of it. Maybe you have one chart and it's going to be formatted for 3 different ways or 4 different ways, or it's going to be maybe you prioritize it. What's the most expensive, least expensive, and what's in between. And as Deanna was saying, also, maybe you're just putting a high-level charts slides up front, which is typically the case, and you have 40 pages, 40 backup slides. Maybe it could be more than that in the background for other questions that come up. That's not unusual. Don't be fearful of that. It's not bad to have too much detail because that means you did the work.
Yeah. I was going to say, do you have any kind of expertise in version control, for instance? Like version control could be applied across all sorts of different products and fields, right? So the lessons that I learned from version control that Bill's talking about now is you have a main message that's eventually going to be finalized and pushed forward into production or delivered to the resulting C-suite team that you're going to present to, right? But along the way, you might decide, well, this is option A for displaying this graphic. Here's another option B. And you can get those things together. And then in a session prior to final delivery, you can sit down with the stakeholders and say, all right, everybody, let's put it together now. Go along the track and find and display the versions, and everybody by consensus make the decision. We're going to use this one here. We're going to use this one here. We're going to use this one here. We're going to reword or repurpose a draft description here. So that by the time you get done with the session, you've got something that's been reviewed, it's been checked for quality, and it's ready to present.
Absolutely. And keep in mind, what we've been talking about as well so far, so thanks for that, Rob, is we're also identifying the approach we want to leverage, right? Yep. And that's extremely critical. So when you start going through the approach, let me go to a little bit different screen with a few minutes. We have a few minutes left, so let's I'm trying to take advantage of it, is once you have the approach down and everyone time agrees, even with the multiple options, that's great. Now is where you look at resource effort and costs.
Yeah.
Right. And when you look at the resource effort and costs, right? What do you think they're going to ask for out of that? What comes to mind?
Cost versus benefit. If you're doing something like that, a cost benefit analysis, a return on investment, start looking at this from a financial perspective. Because can you build anything? Yes, but you're going to be restricted. Limits on budget, limits on effort, who's available. So this is a very important piece to pull together.
And this is one of the final things you do, actually. So you come with a plan, you have your approach, you put that timeline together, say, here's where is the level of effort. And again, you might be working with vendors to help with this, and you have vendors doing it, you outsource it. You never know. There's all sorts of different scenarios we can have with this. It can be a pretty interesting web. But keep in mind, you're going towards an ROI. And everyone says, oh, I want to see an ROI. That's great. Okay, here's the return on investment. But keep in mind, this is a fact, right? 95% of people ask for an ROI never come back to that because the executive tip is not in place when this is actually implemented. Just interesting fact. That's what I've seen with business cases. But I say that because even with that being the case, they still want this outlined. This doesn't change. Still want this outlined, right?
I thought of another one, such as outside considerations, such as if you're going to do a project that needs a lot of computers and China is closed for 2 weeks in December, you're not going to get computers. I mean, I've had that difficulty a few times. The outsource considerations.
That's like external influences.
I mean, I went through 9/11. That was an external.
Yeah, I'm sure it's all them. Even though during 9/11, I did see my laptop come from China to my house. All FedEx, actually.
It didn't go through New York.
That's true.
No.
Yeah.
You went through LA. But you're right. You want the external, because that's part of your roadmap. That's part of your timeline, right? To say, okay, what is it? And also there's additional pieces. Because when it's all said and done, when you start the ROI, say, here's where it is, more than likely, let's say you have 3 options. Your executive's already going to go to one of those for whatever reason. There's one that's just going to knee-jerk reaction. They're going to start inquiring. Maybe all 3. We'll say tip with one. All of a sudden, it highlights. That's your key discussion point. And when they start digging into that, that's where all those backup slides come to be very helpful. Also, you knowing your information. If you don't know your content, I'll be honest, don't show up.
Right.
Unless you want to learn how to get beaten up. I've done that before. We all have our moments, but you need to be prepared as best you can with what you have, and make sure you have slides. And if you've done your best and you still get beaten up, welcome to that world. That does happen too, right?
Oh, yeah.
You can be the best of the best of the best, and somebody's got to think of something obscure for some odd reason. Oh, well, there's this new invention that was invented just last week that changes everything, and we need to redo the entire business case. Why did you not have that in here? It's like, shit, now no.
I'll get back to you on that. Let me do a little bit more research. You're the first one to have brought that up to me, and I will make sure I do my due diligence.
Exactly. I say that tongue in cheek with a smile on my face, right? It is extremely painful on the other side trying to receive it and trying to work through this. And this is where you start learning more thick skin and how that puts forward. But I also put this, again, to actually help us wrap up here at the top of the hour.
Yeah.
I put the business case in as far as with the solution consulting role. Because with solution consulting, what I'm finding is a lot of solution consultants today struggle with this.
Mm-hmm.
They struggle trying to figure out how to articulate the message. They struggle with figuring out how to define value. We've talked about those, right? Struggle with, okay, what's the pitch? They struggle with being able to say, okay, how do you put this business case, even in outline format? Maybe they're not going to do the final one, but at least by you as a solution consultant, and I do recommend a solution consultant role. It's actually a lot of fun. When you start getting here, you're already prompting the customer to start thinking forward. You become that trusted advisor, right?
Yeah.
Again, there may be a whole ROI model this needs to go into. That's great, but you're part of the solution, and you're going to be invited back in the room because you now you're their trusted advisor.
Yeah.
You bring other people in there, but they know you. So that's one of the reasons I want to bring that in from a treasure map perspective, because when you find this treasure and you find that role in a person that actually knows how to articulate it, you're golden. I didn't say you're going to win the deal. You still make the deal something totally off for you. Right? Maybe there's IBM. This is actually happening. IBM plays golf course with your executive, and with that, totally change that your project that you've been working on for 6 months totally tanks.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
That has happened with CIO. I used to be CIO too. Anyways, it happens, right? And that's no fault of yours. You're doing great, right? That's totally something different. Free software is free software, and be careful what you ask for. That's different. But where I'm coming from, and as we finish up here, business cases will depend upon who you are, where you are, who you're working with, how you need to work with them, your stakeholders, along with many other drivers. So it's like, well, that's a lot. It is, but once you figure out how to orchestrate within your own constraints, and you say, I want to learn and grow, that's when this gets to be a lot of fun. It used to be a lot of fun. So that's my little comment. And see, everyone's cheering me on. I got a cheering section, right? Yeah, exactly. Rob, Deanna, exactly. Definitely not eating each other. Any final wrap-up comments as we wrap up the business case?
I do, and this is going to be pertinent in other places as well, not just in the business case, right? It's really important, and it would be a waste if you didn't do it, right? To do a project post-mortem, after action analysis, debrief, whatever word is used to describe that after any effort, right? And sit down with the stakeholders and obtain all the lessons learned. What went great that you can either improve upon or maintain in your workflow going forward? What didn't go so well? What could have gone better? So that the next time, and I guarantee you'll do this more than once, especially if you're working in ITAM. This way you can do a much better job, with each subsequent delivery of a business case.
Yeah.
So that is probably one of the most important things that I could advise anybody listening to this right now or rebroadcasts later on, is take the time, make the time, do a post-mortem analysis, do an after-action briefing, whatever you call it, do that and come away with it with lessons that you can enhance your future work on.
That's great. Deanna?
Have a strong close at the end of the meeting. Don't say any questions. what you're going to do is review the takeaways. Okay, the PMO office has decided they will manage the timelines. Tom said he was really good with charts, and Tom is going to do the charts, and he's going to coordinate with Judy, who is doing the storyboards. This way, people don't leave away with having questions. They have responsibilities after the meeting.
Actions, yes.
Actions, yep.
Know your people and know their capabilities.
Yes, yeah.
You function more like a team, and you get more out there quicker and more cleanly.
Yeah, because they now have to rely on each other.
Yeah.
They were tasked in front of the stakeholders.
Yeah.
No, that's a great point. And these are all key aspects, and you're going to probably have more. As you grow and thrive, you're going to have additional of your own. All of a sudden, it's like, okay, I have this. It's something you're really strong in, and further expand on. So add those too. Absolutely. Everyone's going to have a little different spin on that. That's the one thing I learned in business case. Initially, here's how we're in the first got the job of business cases. Oh, here's the templates. Here's the PowerPoint. Here's how you do the meetings, wrap it up. And I was learning off somebody else. Like, okay, fine, I'll do it. The first time I did it, ding. It wasn't me. It wasn't my own messaging, right? I was trying to mimic somebody else, and it didn't flow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I figured out how to make it flow, including the whole business case part of it, and how to make that happen, and how to talk to the customer, how to talk to the client, how to talk to anybody, talk to peers, right? Then, okay, I was able to make it very proficient, but that did not happen overnight. And that's the part, is just be patient. Realize there is a lot of effort, but also at the same time realize this is just the beginning. We just outlined some of the high level points. If you're doing a real business case, this takes weeks. It's like, well, why so long? Talk with people, feedback, your own time. You're getting pulled between different projects at the same time. There's all sorts of things, right? And that's important. So with that, it's been a pleasure again to make this happen. Or a few minutes over. I'm notorious for that, actually.
Always.
Yeah, exactly. A few minutes over, but hopefully this was quite informational for you, because this is information that you really don't see out there. You see it in written text, but not the conversation like what you're seeing here. And that's quite important. I appreciate everyone being online, and you have yourself a great rest of the day. Tomorrow we'll continue on with the ITAM Kitchen topic TBD. Topic TBD, and on Thursday we're going to have a wrap-up session to our own and their treasure map, and we're going to talk about each part of the journey we've been on this, because keep in mind we've now done 7 sessions on the treasure map for this role. So let's do a review on that and say, okay, how do we conform to where we are, and where do we need to take that forward? Again, we're doing that just for one role. We didn't do it for everything. Trust me, we have lots of things we could go to, but that was a good start. Absolutely. So thank you, Deanna. Thank you, Rob. Really appreciate it. And thank you, everyone online on that part. If you want to put any additional comments, please put them in the comments here section, whether it's LinkedIn or YouTube. If you're on, and please connect to the YouTube channel. It's at ITAM Kitchen. Connect with it. You're going to see lots of the things out there. That's where the main following is going to be. And tomorrow, I know what we're going to do. We're going to have a few announcements tomorrow. That's going to be a lot of fun for us. And so we're going to continue having fun and learn how you can actually even come in person and have some of this fun as well. So that's a little teaser, something forthcoming. So thank you for everyone, and have yourself a great rest of the day.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.